Yo,
Peace. How you feeling?
good.
Good, good.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for joining me. For everybody joining right now, this is History Lesson, episode 165. I am with Wordsworth. Thank you so much, like I said, for joining us this evening.
I'm excited. I've watched some interviews, so I'm excited for this one.
Absolutely. For those who may have forgot or may have never known, can you take us back to where you were born and raised?
Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, from an area called Kensington in Brooklyn, and yeah, that's where I'm from.
No doubt. Take us back to a day in the life of Wordsworth growing up, teenage years.
Man, I had the Gucci link chain on, some polo. I probably had like the Indian head polo goose going out of high school. I had headphones on. I had like the latest headphones back then. Like I had like these Sony headphones that had one wire. So I had like the headphones that was like the Beats before the Beats. I went to Norman Thomas High School, and now that's closed. And I was just into hip hop, man. And I always would have headphones on, listening to music and rapping and talk about that. So that kind of falls in line of the whole Heathcliff cat Wordsworth too. So always had headphones on, rapping, and that's what I was known for. But yeah, that was me, man. Just trying to stay fly and into rapping.
Any obstacles you had to endure growing up during those teenage years in New York?
Man, I think your head was always on a swivel in New York, man. Like especially me having a Gucci link chain, coming home from school. Always concerned about what was gonna go on. Luckily I was coming home with a whole bunch of friends at the same time on the train and all that all the time from Norman Thomas, so that was cool. I think a lot of the obstacles was really just trying to find a way out as far as with your talent. So like I knew I could rap, I didn't know really where to go with it, which I think is a huge issue a lot of times. It's just like you have this talent, then you don't have nobody to help groom that talent, or you have this talent and then you kind of feel like, should I keep doing it, pursuing it or not, or do I do the wrong thing? Because at least I know with the wrong thing, I get the immediate attention and attraction. When you got a talent, it's not immediate. So
right.
You start like wondering, what can I do for immediate satisfaction? So those were like some of the roughest times as far as for me, just growing up, trying to figure out how do I survive running through the streets and be talented without also being like, like how they say, like a sucker or something like that. Cause that's a whole nother thing, right? Like trying to make sure that you're respected for what you do and for who you are. So I think a lot of people to this day deal with those internal issues, and I'm just happy I was able to navigate through all of that.
Right. Earlier on, besides music, what were some of your earlier interests and hobbies?
Man, I was into video games heavy. I was video games heavy, had the Sega Genesis.
ColecoVision?
I had Atari. Went and bought Mr. Do the wrong ColecoVision cartridge. Thought the ColecoVision Atari, but Atari could work in ColecoVision, so I was thinking about that. So I was really into video games heavy, and then I was into hip hop younger because my sister Kim, she was older than me. She's older than me by like 4 years, so she would get all the Run DMC records, all the records that was needed, and then I would listen to the records because she would bring them home. But I definitely was like into video games heavy.
I have a similar situation. My older sister as well, 4 years older, bringing home hip hop. So yeah, I can feel you on that.
Yep.
Take us back to some of your earlier influences. So you say you got into hip hop pretty early. Who are you listening to at this time?
Milk D, Chillin', Top Billin', that's one of my favorite beats of all time. So also, of course, Run DMC, there. And then like, as I got older, Rakim and Kane and all them came into the scope. But for me, my biggest influence was Kool G Rap. Like Kool G Rap, the internal rhyme schemes. So when I would hear his rhyme schemes, I started listening. I was like, yo, this guy don't rhyme at the end without rhyming in the middle. And then I started catching on to that. And so it was really Kool G Rap was like my biggest influence when I was younger. That was my standard, which I think is why I am where I am today as far as understanding what my standards are is because I knew that was my bar. So that's what kept me where it was, quality control.
Right. Can you talk about the scene earlier on before you got into hip hop? What was the scene like when you stepped out into the streets of New York? What did you see firsthand that was drawing you in?
The main thing about hip hop, which everybody can attest to, especially back then, it's an immediate thing. It's like you're coming down the elevator, we're banging on the walls. We get outside, we're banging on the car hood. We're going to the basketball court, somebody beatboxing. You know, it's just something that you can do with no money. Hip hop, you could do it. No, you want to dance? We could dance, break dance, play some music. You know, somebody might have some turntables and they could DJ. So the fact that hip hop is so rooted in the fact that it's organic, as soon as I stepped outside, we were doing it. It didn't matter where you was at. It was always being done no matter where it was. Whether it was how we dressed, right? It could be something with how you dress. Even if you don't have money and you got some sneakers on or whatever the case, the way you wear your sneakers, the way you got the laces. So it was always being something done with hip hop that didn't take a lot of money. So the fact that we could come downstairs in the elevators and bang on the wall, sit on the staircases and rap and things like that, man, that's what really inspired me to understand like I can have fun and enjoy doing this.
Right. Earlier on, how would you say you got into hip hop? A lot of MCs would say they were DJs first, breaking graffiti. For Wordsworth, what was your first element getting into the hip hop?
It was definitely breaking. I think that's everybody. Most sisters, brothers, and nephews always dancing when they're young. Go ahead, do that move or whatever the case. Or you just idolizing the dancing aspect. So it was definitely the dancing aspect because I used to have a roller skating rink right across from my house. It was called Park Circle, right there in Brooklyn, across the street from Prospect Park. So when we used to go to Park Circle on Fridays and Saturdays, there always was a circle in the middle, and everybody's, you know, skating around that circle, but that circle in the middle is where everybody's breakdancing. So I remember like trying to break through that little circle, do my little dance. And the biggest move I used to do and used to be feeling myself was I could do a backflip, you know, but I could never land on my feet. I always landed on my knees, you know. But I would do the backflip and then walk off. So it's like, yo, look at Shorty doing the backflip. So my windmills wasn't that ill. I'll do a couple of them, but that was the biggest thing right there, making sure, you know, you go to Park Circle and then breaking into them circles dancing.
Right. So at what point did you transition to being an MC, and at what point did you start taking it serious? Give us like a timeline as far as year.
I remember exactly when. It was like 6th grade, right? I realized people started writing rhymes. I didn't know people wrote rhymes at that time. Because if you recall, at that time when we were younger, there were no really behind the scenes. You just got the record, we heard it, played it. You knew that we were doing it free outside, banging on the wall. Most people were either freestyling that you would meet, that was friends, family, whatever. Outside is such an instantaneous thing. The preparation of writing a rhyme and all that wasn't really there like that, especially for me at that younger age. Then I found out people wrote rhymes. When you start seeing like Crush Groove and it opens up with them in the studio with rhymes, and you start going like, oh, you could write. So then I started writing rhymes around then. I had a blue notebook, and the pages were even blue. And I started writing rhymes around 6th grade. And that's when I was like, oh, all right, you actually can write. Nowadays, you're all in the studio. I'm in the booth right now. So the influence was different.
Right. Any talent shows earlier on to hone your skills?
Nah, you know, what really honed my skills was actually going to the open mic. So I would go to the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, Wetlands. I would go to the Muse to kind of see what's going on. So actually, the way I honed my skills was being on the open mic scene. Used to go to Pyramid, you know, EO Dub, and go to those things like that. And then really what honed my skills was just being outside after the events. See, the events is one thing when you're in there because you signed up. After the events is where everybody that watched you on stage do your thing say, when you step outside, let me see how good you are. That's when you really get battle tested outside. When you step on stage for the open mic, it's kind of to show off. But once you step outside and stay outside for hours rhyming, that's when it was.
Right. Earlier on, were you in groups first, or were you always kind of pursuing the solo MC thing before like the group thing came about?
Yeah, I was solo, and then when I got to high school, that's how I got into the group. Met my boy Sono, and that's how Sono introduced me to Punchline, and my boy Flo, my boy Earn, and stuff like that. But I was always solo.
Can you take us back to some of the dues you had to pay in memorable ciphers you were in to get your name out there?
Man, a lot of ciphers outside of New Eurekan, man. A lot of ciphers outside of New Eurekan. Really just going to the studios and like being in a lot of studio sessions. There were times like you would have to battle somebody that was in the studio, whoever was there or arrived, and really just like rapping for producers. So like TrackMasters, meeting them and like, yo, spit a verse. And it's like spit a verse on the spot. So back then I used to have tons of verses ready to go at any time right then. So it was really a lot of times meeting people in the studio. If you outside New Eurekan or anywhere, rhyming for hours and seeing if you can withstand everybody in that circle going around. And then, going to studio here and there. I don't think going to studio back then was really like paying dues for people in a way. Like you go to studio to record the song, but honestly, it was outside, man. You walk in on, you're walking through the village, you see a group right then and there. It don't matter if you rap and you with somebody that know you rap and there's a group of people in the corner and you don't go step in that cipher, that lets people know where your heart is with it. So, constantly any group or cipher that I seen around on the corners, I just would step into just to prove my point.
Most memorable cipher that you've been a part of back in the day?
All right, this was with, I remember, it's one that's on the Freestyle Art of Rhyme, if you've ever seen that movie. But one that I would say would be with DCQ, which actually is Mo's brother. And which is so wild is at one point we're rhyming outside of New Eurekan, and crazy thing is me and DCQ knew each other from when Mad Young trading video games. I didn't know Most was his brother at all. We outside rhyming in front of New Eurekan, and I say, my name Wordsworth. And he was like, Cypher, stop. He was like, yo, you Wordsworth. And we've been knowing each other for mad long since kids. But he didn't know I was Wordsworth, because back then, how could you really know I'm Wordsworth unless I said that name? Nowadays it's photos, pictures, and stuff like that. So then right then and there, that's how I knew me and him connected closer and had a closer bond with knowing Most. So it's wild because in one life, I'm knowing Most. In another life, I'm hanging with his brother, playing video games, which is so ill. And then having that cipher is when it became something big. Another cipher would be on Sway and Tech, the show with DJ Revolution, and it was me, believe Thirst, Quest, and they took us up there during the Rap Olympics. And that same week is where Eminem got his deal from rhyming on the radio then.
Wow.
Yeah, so being in those type of confines rhyming. Another cipher is me, Royce, and AL Skills. Yeah. I believe it was what's the college on 23rd, maybe 23rd and Park Avenue? Something like that. But we're rhyming. AL got the tape though, and it's me, Royce, and AL rapping back then. And we was just going, man. And Craig G was there. And I was, man, just rhyming on it up there, man. So yeah, I had a lot of memorable ciphers with people that are just of the elite, because they're the ones that helped me stay elite where I'm at as far as mindset. I think you reflect who you're around. That's as simple as that.
Right. At this time, are you recording demos and shopping those to certain labels?
Around that time, me and Punchline are hanging with TrackMasters at that time. And then trying to get signed to TrackMasters. And then we had, I'll tell you another funny part too at that time too, people may not know, that me and Punch ended up ghostwriting a song for Joe Pesci, the actor. It's a song. So if you ever see it on the internet or anything, me and Punch wrote that with Joe Pesci we wrote it with Joe Pesci, which was an ill thing too at that time. And at that time, me and Punch, we were doing a demo, shopping a demo, but we did a demo that wasn't good at that time. That kind of fit. It was trying to like do a demo that would kind of be commercial appealing at the same time, and it didn't work out that way. So we were still trying to figure out what labels and where to go, you know. So we had some offers on the table, but they weren't right. You know, a lot of that, I think. Here's a big key thing that I took, that I hold until this day is, back then I used to see a lot of the artists I love complain about publishing. So you remember, like back then, Cube, we heard and read about what happened with Cube. Now you see it in the movie. Back then I heard about the stuff with Snoop's publishing and all these artists with publishing. So when we get certain contracts and offers, I would be the stickler that would stop some of the deals based on publishing. And whether I was hated or loved for it, it is whatever. But I knew, here's the thing, I knew that I did not want to be angry with somebody for the rest of my life, right? Because if you give away your publishing and it ties you into this whatever albums or that person, now you're writing songs for somebody you hate. So if I sell you my publishing or whatever the case may be, or for a couple albums and I'm working it off, and me and you get in a dispute, now I'm tied into that, and now this publishing is with this person I dislike, which we've seen happen with artists all the time, right? So I knew that from watching that, so I felt like I'll bet on myself and take whatever comes with that, and I never gave up my publishing. So that's how it worked out.
Very dope. What eventually happened to the situation with TrackMasters?
Just we got older and everybody kind of like went their own way. I went off to college, so I went off to college. A little more difficult to try to do music here and there, but it was actually cool for me because I would actually go to college, SUNY Westbury in Long Island, and then I still would come home to New Eurekans every, third Saturday, first, whatever the dates was for it. I would make sure I would come home on the train, LIRR, and then head right back to school. 2 o'clock in the morning, catch the last train. So I just made sure I would stay in the loop, but I was at school a lot of those times.
What's the timeline about this?
That's like 90, we talking 97, 96 around.
Okay.
I'm off, like just trying to build my name.
Right.
And around that time too, if I'm right, around that time is when you get me and Punch performing at like Tramps and stuff like that at Lyricist Lounge show, and Q-Tip hosted, and that's how me and Punch on the Tribe Request album, because Q-Tip saw us from hosting a Lyricist Lounge event that he wasn't supposed to host. The host didn't show up. Yes, the host, and he saw us rocking, and that's how we got in that situation on there. And around that same time, meeting Tip, I didn't know that Tip knew Most and Kweli. So mind you, getting called from Tip to get on that album, I knew Kweli and Most doing Black Star, and that same year when those albums released, they both released the same year. I'm on both of the 2 classic albums that year.
I think the same day, right?
Yeah, the same day, right. So
yeah,
it's
so take us back. Is the Love Movement your first appearance on Wax?
I would say, if I'm right, when did Lyricist Lounge Volume 1 come out? That might be it. Lyricist 1. That might be it. The song, the Cypher we had. So that might be it first. And then, there's other songs prior to that, though, because we would do a lot of independent records with Matt Fingers. So a lot of people know Matt Fingers. He used to put out a lot of records back in the 90s. He would just like commission artists to come through. You do a verse at my boy Elliot's studio. You go through there, you lay your verse down, and he would put out a lot of the vinyl stuff like that. So it really was just like I was appearing on a lot of independent underground stuff. But the main ones was when Lyricist Lounge came out, Tribe came out, Black Star came out, and so on.
After your appearance on the Lyricist Lounge, is there a bidding war? Is there interest brewing for Wordsworth?
At that time, it was kind of like a Punch and Words thing, and the Lyricist Lounge, Danny Castro and Anthony Marshall was actually trying to get their own deal, like their own label. So we went into the office. I remember they had a deal for me and Punch on there, and the terms, we couldn't come to agreement on the terms with that. And then it was kind of like just one of those things that, just like I said, just still rhyming on everything I could rap on and rapping everywhere I could. And then eventually what happens is we go to do the Lyricist Lounge album, and during the skits is when my boy Wise Guy and Gaston, the two twins, I call them like the archives. They have like almost probably every cipher out there. The two twins, and they were split up to go at every New York event that was out. So if one was there, one was there. So they recorded everything. They will always have a radio and a video camera back then. So they got so many ciphers, is incredible. And during that session, during the Lyricist Lounge session, it's like 25 of us in there. I mean, it's Thurston, AL, IG Often Hazardous, and everybody, you know what I'm saying? And we're all in there rapping together. And it's coming to me, the camera, and I'm like, man, you know, you can't be in there 20, 30, 25 people not rap. So I'm like, how am I going to do something different? So I end up actually doing a tutorial to people at home on camera on how to rhyme, acting like the wall was my board. Everybody in the room started asking me questions in rhyme. I would answer them in rhyme. And that's the first skit that actually Jacob Septimus seen it. He was like a partner with the Lounge back then. He was like, yo, this could be a TV show. He told me to come to his crib. I go to his crib. He's like, yo, man, I'm watching this tape, man. I'm like, I think I'm like at that time, like 20, 21 maybe, or whatever, 20 or something like that. I go, all right, man, well, if you think it'll be a TV show, man, let me know. You know, I brush it off because I never seen an artist skip the record deal to get on TV. So remember, we still are living by examples. Nowadays, there's so many avenues of getting stuff. Back then, it was kind of, you get your deal, you get the fame, you get TV offers, you get a show. I pretty much just skipped that whole process of having a deal at that time. And that's how the Lyricist Lounge show was born.
So we're going to get to that in a moment. Take us back to meeting Q-Tip at the Lyricist Lounge and how that led to being on the Love Movement.
Yeah, so he hosted. So right then and there, we didn't know anything. He introduced us. We rocked the show. And days later, Danny and Ant, you know, called me and Punch to come down like, yo, we got a call from Q-Tip. He said, you know, he wants y'all to be on the album. So I'm like, what? You know, so it's like, yo, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? That's crazy. So we meet up with Tip. And then immediately it was more like just like getting right to work with it. Because even, you know, Jane Doe became a part of the whole situation. And that's when we went to go to the studio to do Rock Y'all. So he was immediate about, like, you know, he wasn't playing around with no, like, yeah, I'm thinking about all this and that. At the time, he had to deal with DreamWorks. So he already had a plan that we was going to be that team, kind of like at that time. Remember, a lot of people was trying to do the Wu thing and these groups, and you get your artists and you sign them. So that was going to be his squad. So it was going to be me, Jane Doe, Mos Def, Kweli, and I believe I ain't leaving anybody out. And we were going to be that roster. And so we do Rock Y'all, and that's how that led to that.
Any interest at this time? You're on a major platform with the Tribe Called Quest. Any interest coming your way, or you and Punch as a group?
I mean, not really like that. It wasn't really like that at that time. I think a lot of people thought we were on Ruckus. We never were on Ruckus. A lot of people had that misconception. So we were rhyming on so many things that dealt with artists from those labels that people assumed that we had a deal either that way or something like that. So we never were on Ruckus, but people assume that to this day. I see people say like, yeah, you was on Ruckus around that time. I'm like, nah, I never was, but I could understand that. So around that time, it was just more so still every now and then going to TrackMasters sessions. So being in studio sessions, just observing the process, still trying to learn and absorb. I think you know, being around TrackMasters, we learned a lot, just kind of like learning how the records and things like that.